Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to cover the topic poultry. I have already discussed about meat and meat products in my previous video. So if you haven't watched it, you can go to the playlist and watch that particular video to get the entire information about meat and meat products. In this video, we are going to cover the poultry. We'll be talking about various plant operations which occurs during the poultry processing. We'll be talking about various other poultry meat products which are developed, and that we'll be talking about the tenderness, flavor, and color development in the poultry, and we'll also talk about the nutritive values. So poultry, as we all know, they are raised mainly for the meats and for eggs. The main principal types of poultry, they are chicken, turkeys, ducks, and geese, and the amounts which are consumed are also in this particular order. Mostly chickens are consumed in large quantities. In various other parts of the world, different types of fowls are also consumed, such as emu and ostriches. So most chicken meat, they come from initially, the most chicken meat, they come from egg-laying birds whose ability to lay eggs had declined. But today, because of the increasing demand of the meat, specific genetic strains are produced which exhibit rapid growth, disease resistance, and good meat qualities such as tenderness and flavor. So going from smaller and younger to larger and older birds, there are different designations which are given to chickens such as broiler or fryer, roaster, capon, stag, stewing chicken, and old rooster. So the tenderness of the flesh generally decreases in the same order. Like the broiler or the fryers, they are generally preferred for processing into fresh or frozen chicken because of its tenderness, because their tenderness is essential. However, in the canned chicken or chicken soups, they can use older and tougher boards because sterilization heat of canning usually tenderizes the meat. So coming to processing and plant operations. Live birds, they are shackled, electrically stunned, bled, scalded to facilitate feather removal, plucked of feathers and eviscerated. They are government inspected and then washed and chilled. Then they are dried and packaged and frozen if production calls for freezing. So now we'll be discussing each steps. First one is slaughter and bleeding. So first of all, the birds, they are not fed for 12 hours before they are being slaughtered. The main reason behind this is to ensure that their crops are empty, which makes for cleaner operation. Next is bleeding time. It depends on the efficiency of the cut, the type of the bird, and whether the bird was electrically stunned or not before cutting. Bleeding usually take 1 to 3 minutes depending upon various factors. Next process is scalding. So after bleeding, the birds are conveyed through a scalding tank, and scalding loosens the feather and make for easier plucking and pin feather removal. So main purpose of scalding is to remove feathers, and it is done by using a scalding tank. The higher the temperature, the shorter will be the time required for defeathering. But careful time and temperature control is important, and as because at higher temperature there is a greater danger of removal of portions of the skin in the defeathering machine. So it is usually done at 60 degrees Celsius in about 45 seconds, or for more safety, and for lesser chances of removal of skin, it should be done at 52 degrees Celsius for about 2 minutes. Next process is defeathering. It is commonly done mechanically by a device that has many rotating rubber fingers, and this removes all but a few pin feathers, which can be removed by dipping the bird in melted wax, chilling to harden the wax, and then peeling. Next process is eviscerating. Evisceration is generally done in separate cool room. It includes the inspection of the viscera by a veterinarian or someone under the supervision, and the lungs and the other organs, they are difficult to dislodge, and therefore they are removed by suction tubes. After this, birds are passed, and then they are after inspection they are thoroughly washed. Next is chilling. The washed birds, they are rapidly chilled from about 32 to 2 degrees Celsius to prevent bacterial spoilage and to preserve quality. Chilling is done with ice slush, and the birds absorb a small amount of moisture from the slush, which make them more succulent after packaging. Succulent means more juicy. So chilling is done, and after chilling, the birds are drained of the excess moisture and they are sized and graded for quality. And Nowadays, initially the whole of the broiler or whole carcasses were bought by the consumers, but nowadays they prefer particular cuts or particular selected portions of the carcass, such as breast or thighs, and thus partially automated processing lines, which reduces whole carcass into smaller portions. They have become common, and whole carcass sales now represent only about 1/5 of the fresher poultry sales. Initially, whole carcasses were bought, but now the consumers, they prefer to only buy the certain specific portions, and therefore the whole carcass marketing is only about 1/5 of the total poultry sales. Next comes the packaging. So the graded poultry or poultry parts, they are now packaged as fresh poultry in boxes, and they are surrounded by crushed ice. So the birds must be kept below 4 degrees Celsius, and they are moved to retail channels. The shelf life usually depends on the bacterial load, and it should be about 10,000 organisms per square centimeter of the surface, which is not uncommon. Order and slime will develop even at 4 degrees Celsius in about 6 days. So though we are packaging the bird below 4 degrees Celsius, but it is not that it will have a greater shelf life if because of this packaging, because the shelf life totally depends upon the amount of bacterial load which is present on the particular poultry meat. So even at 4 degrees Celsius, bacterial slime may develop in 6 days. So in order to overcome the added shipping weight, it's like when the poultry parts, they are surrounded by crushed ice, so the weight also increases. So there is a drawback in the shipping, like the added weight of the ice creates problem. Therefore, the poultry industry, they have rapidly moved to other technologies such as the deep chilling process, the modified atmospheric packaging, and low moisture, low oxygen transmission film or bags and frozen. So deep chilling process parts are sealed in consumer packages, and then they are sent through a low temperature blast funnel and frozen to a depth of few millimeters. And this frozen crust, it quickly equilibrates with the rest of the carcass, which is then maintained at a temperature of -1 to 2 degrees Celsius. So in spite of adding crushed ice in the boxes, the poultry meat is only they are deep chilled, and they are maintained at temperature of -1 to -2 degrees Celsius during the time of shipment. Next is modified atmospheric packaging, also known as MAP. It is used to ship pre-packed poultry products. These technologies, they along with the controlled refrigeration, they can produce a product with a shelf life of 18 to 21 days. So such kind of processes were used in order to overcome the problem of increased weight. And in order to prolong storage life, they can be individually wrapped in low moisture, low oxygen transmission films or bags, and then they are frozen. So these are the methods which are utilized for packaging of the poultry meat. Now, let's talk about the tenderness, flavor, and color development in these meats. So, the color of the flesh of poultry and other birds is commonly described as dark or light. So, there are only two categories, that they are dark or light. In these two categories, they are divided. So, the dark muscles, they contain more myoglobin, and they are used by the birds for sustained activity. Light muscle has less myoglobin. Ducks or other birds that fly distance have dark breast muscles, whereas birds which do not fly distance, such as chickens and turkeys, they have light colored breast muscles. This is because, as it is said, that myoglobin is used by the birds for sustained activity. Therefore, the lighter muscles, they have less myoglobin, and the darker muscles, they contain more myoglobin. So the birds which fly to larger distances, they have dark breast muscles, while the birds which do not fly distances, they have a such as chicken, they have light colored breast muscle. So the color of the skin of most birds reflects the amount of plant pigment consumed in the diet. If the chicken is raised on like corn or other grains, then they'll have a light color skin. And if the highly pigmented plant material such as yellow color petals are mixed in the diet, then skin will take a yellow color. So this does not, however, affect the quality, but in some areas it is taken as a measure of quality, as people more prefer. People usually they check on the quality things based on visual parameters. So Same factors also affect the tenderness of the meat in poultry. The meat from young birds is more tender than the meat from the older ones, as meat with less connective tissue and more fat. Birds which are grown in confined quarters without exercise, they yield more tender meat, and than the birds which grow on open range. Okay, so rigor mortis. This is a term which we have also discussed in meat. So it occurs soon after being killed, and it is associated with conversion of glycogen to lactic acid, which has a mild preservative effect on the flesh, and there's a contraction of muscle, and there's stiffness of the tissues. Rigor mortis, it naturally subsides in poultry in 10 hours or less. In meat products, it usually takes 2 days. If poultry is cooked or frozen while the meat is in a state of rigor mortis, then meat may be excessively tough, and this is avoided in the good processing techniques. So, rigor, as soon as the poultry is in rigor mortis stage, and if you cook it or froze it, then the meat would be excessively tough. Next comes the self-basting birds. In order to contribute to tenderness and flavor, and at the same time providing added convenience during cooking, there has been development of self-basting boards, which are intended for roasting. This type of product, they are more commonly used with turkey, and they can also be produced within chickens. In order to produce self-basting boards, the manufacturer injects basting liquids at several points under the skin of the birds before packaging and freezing. And this basting liquids generally contains vegetable oils, emulsifiers, and artificial flavors. And during the time of roasting, these basting liquids moisten the skin and flesh and contributes to the succulence that is added juicy uh, added juicy flavor, or we can say there's more tenderness. Next, coming to the nutritive value. The roasted white meat without the skin, it contains 64% water, 32% protein, and 3.5% fat, whereas dark meat without skin contains 65% water, 28% protein, and 6% fat. The skin is high in fat. Chicken flesh contains more protein, less fat, and less cholesterol than red meat, and the protein is of excellent quality, and it contains all of the amino acids which is needed by the humans. The fat is more unsaturated than the fat of the red meat, and this can provide further nutritional advantages. And like other animal tissue, poultry flesh is a good source of B vitamins and minerals. So if we compare this with the meats, then there's a presence of more unsaturated fat than the fat which is present in the red meat, and it would surely provide nutritional benefits to the people. And because of the high protein to fat ratio, chicken is a favored option for the people who want to restrict the fat intake and who want to have more protein in the diet. So this was all about poultry. I hope you find the video informative. Please do like, share, and subscribe to Food Tech Shiksha.